My name is Jason.
And my name is Judd.
And this is The Sixth Ring, a podcast about the trophy tabletop role-playing game.
And today our theme is moments, which if you're not careful will get lost like tears in rain.
I hate when that happens.
Ugh, the worst.
Setting out.
So, Judd, I am currently in the middle of running a pretty extensive, long Trophy Gold campaign. It's definitely the longest run of Trophy Gold I've done, and our campaign is currently at something of a... If it was a TV show, it would be like the end of the first season, right?
Yeah,
We're like
yeah.
transitional point.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to just talk about that a little bit now. I thought that'd be a good moment to do so.
Yeah, it's great.
Talk about that a bit and reflect on it. And, if you have any questions, you hit me up, by all means.
Sounds good.
I'll just cover some basics. So I've been running this Trophy Gold campaign on Saturdays since the late summer. And so far, we have finished 9 sessions. I have had the same 3 or 4 players from the beginning, 4 total players, 2 every session, and then the third and fourth one. One of the players was kind of like more towards the beginning, and then one was sort of towards the other half. But then all 4 of them got together for the final session, the 9th session, so that was pretty great.
Oh, awesome.
But yeah, so a pretty consistent group. In those 9 sessions, we completed 3 incursions, Hester's Mill, the Huntsman's Manor, which Doom is going through right now, and Top of the World. We did 3 rounds of Hearthfire, which is the Trophy Gold upkeep rules procedure. And we also had 2, side quests. They each took up about half a session. So
Okay.
kind of tuck those in there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of where we're at. I feel like we've gotten a lot done. Our story is really, really good. I'm loving it. I can't wait to get back in there and do another 9 sessions. I'm really, really...
Yeah.
really hyped for it.
I feel like that period after the first season or the first book is really exciting. You have enough background that you kind of almost have a common vocabulary and you're kind of you're building on something,
Well, one of the players, Brian, did this really awesome thing last session. He had been keeping track of all of our dangling story threads, things that got introduced but we didn't follow up on for whatever reason.
Okay.
About half of them were things that I had noted for myself, but there were a few that I had kind of forgotten about, and it was actually really great because he sort of went through them all, and I was like, oh man, I'm definitely doing that next time. I'm going to grab some of those things, and we'll kind of explore those things, and it's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
The cast, so to speak, is in their groove. The writing team is in their groove, and season 2 is going to be awesome.
It's one of the reasons why I'm lukewarm on con games, unless it's a longer kind of long con or ChristaCon, because as good as that first 4 hours would have been, I know the next 4 hours and the 4 hours after that would have been even better. Yeah, and I think it just builds on each other. It's really great. Trophy Gold pretty well, I think it's safe to say. Anything that has surprised you about the system or the game in longer play?
Yeah, actually, yes. The biggest one is, so going into it, I think the most sessions I had done for a group of Trophy Gold was probably 3 or 4 sessions maybe, and that was when we were kind of playtesting it,
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise I'd been just doing kind of a lot of one-shots. And so the thing that I was most concerned about going into a longer campaign, committing to a longer campaign, was, are the players going to miss traditional character advancement?
Right.
Because Trophy Gold doesn't have traditional character advancement. There are no levels, there are no skills that you unlock or anything like that, right? No powers that you get. And I've always been of the opinion that it's okay for a story game not to have anything like that, because we're only going to play it for a short time and then we're done. But for a campaign length game, one of the things that makes that a satisfying experience is to have mechanized, easily identifiable character progression, right? Something that the players can look forward to and get invested in. And to my delight, that has not been a thing at all, at all. And I think it's because as I've played all these sessions or run all these sessions and watched the players interact with the system and interact with Devil's Bargains and helping tell the story, what I've discovered is that there is character progression in Trophy Gold. It just doesn't look like what we think character progression normally looks like. There is advancement. It's just not, it's not a hard mechanical or procedural advancement like you would get in like D&D or something like that.
Oh,
right?
yeah. But what does that mean?
Well, okay, I'll unpack it for you. It's a much more narrative advancement. We'll do a devil's bargain in a session, say, and something will get introduced that no one anticipated. That sometimes comes with permanent implications for the character. Either something gets added to their sheet, they take a condition or something like that. That is a sort of advancement in a way because their character has changed. So the characters change. They don't get any better, that's for sure.
Right.
They don't improve necessarily. Arguably they get worse, but like at least in terms of like their ability to survive. But they become richer characters. This is especially the case when you start engaging with Hearthfire, which is the downtime upkeep procedure that I created for the game. When you start engaging Hearthfire, that becomes your advancement because you're suddenly like unlocking your character's backstory. You're unlocking their religious faith. You're unlocking details about their lives that we don't get to see in the dungeon.
Yeah.
And so that all starts to be sort of part of the story, and that kind of becomes the thing that you look forward to seeing. We're doing the dungeon. We're going to meet our burdens. We're going to have our danger and our high adventure. But when we get back, we're going to see how this character likes to spend their downtime. Like, what do they like to do? What do they like to get up to?
Yeah.
And it just makes it a very like rich kind of complete storytelling experience. And so to me, that's the kind of advancement that Trophy Gold has, this like a traditional fiction writing type character progression, I would think. So
Nice.
So that's been a big surprise. And the surprise really has been that the players don't seem to miss it. They don't seem to miss the traditional character advancement.
Yeah.
No one so far has said, wow, I really wish I could get to level 2 or whatever, right? Like no one said that yet.
Right.
So that makes me feel good about what the game is trying to accomplish as far as that goes.
Absolutely. I've been running it for a while now too, and there's almost a thing where the older characters who've been around for a while get like a mystique to them, and they and also if you build on what you've done before in adventures, suddenly like they know things that are valuable, not only in the bestiary, but like, hey, you know, I went through a well like this and it took me to another world. Let's be careful.
Right. Yeah.
They just see so much weird shit that
right,
you can't help but be changed by it. Is there a devil's bargain that stands out to you in your game?
It was maybe not the most epic or whatever, but probably my favorite was when we were doing the Top of the World incursion, which is an incursion that takes place on the rooftops of a great city. There was this NPC character called Sir Peregrine, who was this gentleman hunter. He has all this money and he's into his hunting falcons and all that stuff. And they were trying to parley with him for some reason. I don't remember what it was, but basically they found him on his roof doing yoga. And so they were like saluting the sun or whatever, right? They were trying to like parley with him because he kind of caught them out a little bit, running away from the royal guard. One of the characters is a beast bitten, and his beast bitten type is a bear. So he like used to be a bear, and he has this affinity for bears. And so a devil's bargain that came up with Sir Peregrine was, no matter what, he's going to invite you into his parlor, and he has a bear chained up in his parlor.
Oh.
And it just was like instant story drama.
Right.
Immediately, it like just totally shifts the scene. It totally shifts the stakes. It totally changes the character's perspective on the NPC. And we had a really fabulous scene where they are, that detail about there being a bear, like just being kept as a pet, that detail spun out into so many other cool details about Sir Peregrine that just made him the sort of character you want to throw out a window. Like, for example, he has this legendary ranger is his footman.
Nice.
Right? It's like that kind
Nice.
of thing. It was just such a good offer that just really took the story into a cool place. So yeah, I was really happy with that. And it was so connected to that player character's sort of whole thing.
It so fleshes out this asshole rock star knight who's doing
Right,
yoga,
exactly.
who does yoga on his roof. And not that assholes do yoga. I need to do more yoga. But the asshole part is the bear and you're chained up in the den. It's just such a dick move. Cool. And is that the one that's called The Sisters' Lies? Is that
The
one?
Lies of the Sisters.
Lies of the Sisters?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
That is a name that has multiple meanings in the campaign.
Awesome. And we'll have a link to the YouTube playlist if you're
We will
if you're
indeed. Yeah,
interested.
we'll put that in the show notes.
Cool. Any other moments that stand out or things that you're interested in or your things you can't wait to dig into?
I'm just happy with how it's going, and I'm happy that Trophy Gold I'm still excited to kind of keep going with it.
Yeah.
10 sessions in or 9 sessions in. And yeah, it's just been a heck of a lot of fun. And I just can't wait to keep going. No one's died.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm kind of waiting for that moment because I think it's going to happen. We've had we've had numerous moments when characters were at 5 ruin and they're like super close to dying.
Yeah.
And that sometimes caused them to be a little bit more defensive in their play, but that's okay. I think the Jesse intends for you to be a little bit strategic in how you play it,
right?
And to not just throw yourself into the middle of danger. So we've had a couple of moments like that where all or most of the party are like on the knife's edge of dying. I'm kind of really attached to the characters now, and I don't want them to die, but I have a feeling it's going to happen. It's got to happen at some point.
It's going to happen. So. Yeah. And it's kind of awesome when it does too, I think. I don't know. It makes everything else sweeter somehow. It's really good.
I think it will too. We'll see.
There's a nice thing about earnestly like missing a fictional character. I don't know. I think it's really special. I think it makes the rest of the game even more special. And I really like it. I don't want death willy-nilly, but I think it's cool to have that risk.
I'm with you there. Yeah, I'm definitely with you on that. Because like there needs to be danger. There needs to be the possibility of it.
Yeah. Cool.
Let's go to the next segment.
Clawing for gold.
Okay, so today we are talking about Roommates Wanted, a Trophy Dark incursion by Dark Liquid. This was a Trophy Dark incursion that was part of the Trophy Trifold Jam that was hosted by Speak the Sky. You'll recall that we covered the very first Clawing for Gold segment was one of Speak the Sky's incursions. The idea for this Trophy Trifold Jam was that these were Trophy Dark incursions that could fit on a trifold piece of paper. So this was one of them. It takes place in a modern day setting, and it's about a rich eccentric who is looking for people to share his palatial home with. And so he's put out an advertisement looking for roommates, and the people show up answering the advertisement, and they discover a couple of interesting things. One, there are tubes all over the house with rats inside of them. And 2, the person doing the advertisement, the landlord, so to speak, this older rich guy, he's promised them all $10,000 if they just stay 5 nights in the house. So it's a weird setup. I actually got a chance to run this. I ran this very recently, and my group had a lot of fun with it. I'm happy to talk about some of that stuff, but I'd like to just get your initial impressions, Jed. What'd you think?
I loved it. I think there's a tendency to make things that are laid out well and done well as like minimalist, but this isn't. The font is very carefully chosen. The art that is in there is very well done. It's just the layout is so clever that it feels like a Wanted ad.
Right.
It just feels like something you could get going. You could take it out on the table and get it going in like 5 seconds.
And I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had it printed out. We were up and running in no time. Like it was really easy to get going. Something that's kind of cool is the character creation as presented is actually the advertisement. That's the character creation. So like it's the rich guy like saying everything that he wants in a roommate, and all the things that he wants are like the occupation, the drives, and all that kind of stuff. It was a super cool way of like doing character creation, and it's also a really smart way of making use of the fairly limited space.
Yeah, no, I love it. I think it's so smart. There's something about taking horror elements like rats or whatever it is and combining it with something horrific in the real world. But not so much that it's like really obvious, but that it's like really obviously a metaphor, because it's not. It's just this gruesome thing. And I love that. I love how it kind of just leans into paying rent and the grind, landlords, and yeah, I just love it. I think it's really cool. I just love that it takes something horrific from everyday world that we probably have to deal with all the time and makes it just a really cool adventure.
Yeah, there's a lot of like class warfare in here as well. You
know, oh yeah,
like all that stuff is, and like just the sort of often like antagonistic relationship between landlords and tenants, right? Like all that stuff is baked into this, and it's really great.
Oh yeah. Having lived in New York City for 6 years, this brings, I mean, if it had bed bugs in it, I would not be able to look at it. I would be too terrified to read it. But right. As it is, it's readable, but it's very unsettling, and I love it. I definitely want to play it and want to print it out and check it out.
Something that I really enjoyed about this is that It has a really different feel from most Trophy Dark incursions that I've played so far, in that there isn't like a linear progression from like the outer ring to the inner ring.
Yeah.
In fact, our layers here are called days rather than rings. It's a temporal progression. You don't really move anywhere different. You're just sort of lasting 5 days in this place.
Yeah.
But it has a really different feel. It feels much more like, in the way that Trophy Dark feels like a fairy tale, the standard Trophy Dark anyway, this feels much more like something from a horror anthology like Creepshow or Black Mirror. In fact,
Yeah.
it felt very much like one of the segments on the original Creepshow movie, the cockroach one. It's called They're Creeping Up on You. It felt so similar to that. That story in Creepshow also has lots to say about like class and technology and all that kind of stuff. It just had a really, really, in Vermin, it felt so close to something like that, which I thought was pretty great. There were some interesting things in running this. One, I thought that it was going to be really hard to run because the trifold format makes it so that there isn't a lot of textual detail like you would have in a normal Trophy Dark incursion.
Yeah.
In fact, the terrors and temptations are basically just more moments. Like they're just more bullet point moments, kind of like the normal list of moments,
Okay.
So I thought it wasn't going to be enough. I was kind of worried about that. It ended up being okay, though. And I think the reason why is because a modern day setting is pretty familiar. And so already we're all sort of like on the same page a little bit. Interestingly, I think that the players actually felt a little more freed up to do Cool's Devil's Bargains precisely because the incursion is otherwise kind of a light touch.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just asked, what do you do a lot?
Right.
I just like say a horrifying thing and then what do you do? And that got us through pretty well.
Yeah. It makes me eager to see how people are going to play with that 5-ring with that whole Trophy Dark structure and make it their own. Turning rings into days is really cool.
Yeah.
And I just think,
I said earlier that it's not a linear progression, but I meant just like geographically or like sort of in space, right? It does progress in days, and every day does get more scary, more horrifying. Like it kind of starts with just sort of like low level modern day class struggle stuff, but then it sort of like gets just more like horror as it goes until, I mean, the 4th and 5th ring are really gruesome and really, really, really gruesome stuff.
Yeah.
And it's great. Like it was really, really fun to play. The one thing that I'm not like 100% sure about with this is I wonder if a less experienced play group or GM would have success with this because it is a fairly light touch. Like there's enough there to play, but I just wonder because we had to do a lot of improvising, probably a little bit more than you normally would in Trophy. And so I'm curious about that, but otherwise I highly recommend this. I think it's great.
Yeah. I mean, I think I recommend it even if you just kind of want to write adventures and see what the format can be. I mean, it makes me really curious. I mean, now I want to see nonlinear games, where you can die in the 2nd ring, but then in the 3rd ring, it's before that ring. So you can come back, but you know what I mean? And then you kind of fill things out for the 5th ring, which maybe is the prelude or something. I don't know. There's something there to be had about that.
One of the official Trophy Dark incursions is called the Spiral. That's one of Jesse's. And it actually does have a time hopping feature like that.
Awesome.
You can jump straight to ring 4 in that one.
Oh, wow.
And then come back to ring 1 or ring 2 or whatever.
Nice.
So it is possible to do. I've never played the Spiral, so I don't know if it holds up. But yeah, Roommates Wanted is indeed another way of looking at the structure and like seeing another way that it could go. Let's go to the next segment.
Into the Forest Dark.
Okay, today we are talking about moments. I get a very common question. I know you've seen it too, Judd. People like to ask, how do you use the moments? And I'm not going to go into what moments are because I'm assuming if you're listening to this, you know what they are. But it seems like a basic question, kind of, or a basic topic. But I think there's maybe more going on. So I thought we could just talk about that for a little bit.
That sounds good. They're a fun tool. I think that's a smart thing to talk about. And then in our notes, I wrote, it's the too long didn't read of adventure design, right?
Right. It kind of is. Yeah.
If you didn't read anything else, you might be able to get by on strong moments. Probably not. But it makes it easy to look at an adventure that maybe you read last week and remember, oh, right, that's what this is about.
So my sort of opening gambit here, my idea here to start off is this idea of deconstruction.
Okay.
So in fine dining, of course, deconstruction is you take a thing that people know very well, like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich or a turkey pot pie or something, and you deconstruct it so that the component parts are presented in a new and interesting way. It still fundamentally has the flavor profile of a turkey pot pie, but you get to enjoy it in a different way because maybe the crust is served as a little like cracker, and the peas are like a pea puree, and the turkey is like, prepared in a slightly different way or whatever. But it's the idea of a turkey pot pie, but pulled apart.
Got it.
I think that trophy incursions are deconstructions. I've always thought this. I wasn't the first person to have this idea. In fact, a friend of ours, somebody who I play with all the time, or I used to play with all the time, Garrett Reininghouse, he had this original idea that trophy dark incursions were a deconstruction of a dark fairy tale or a fable.
Oh, interesting.
And,
yeah.
He kind of like did a nice little, like, I don't remember where it's at anymore, but he did like a nice little like writing his thoughts down of like why he thought that was the case. And I think Trophy Gold as well, I think it's a deconstruction of a traditional dungeon.
Right.
Or the incursions are. To me, thinking about the incursions as deconstructions of a fairy tale in the case of Trophy Dark, or a dungeon in the case of Trophy Gold, I think it helps like put every part of the incursion in a different perspective, because these are all just parts of those things that are presented in a slightly different way, so that you can grab them and use them and enjoy them in a different way, or use them as you need to. And the moments are this sort of the ne plus ultra, this idea, right? Like, they are literally the seasoning, to keep my food metaphor going.
Yeah.
They're my seasoning of the story. They're the flavor bits. They're not attached to anything in particular. They're not like nestled in a paragraph of text. They are just free floating. When used, they feel like a part of the whole.
Yeah.
Am I like way off base with this?
No. I'm with you. I'm totally with you. I think that's an interesting way to look at it. As I'm writing Trophy Gold incursions and reading a lot of them, thinking of them as spice is an interesting way to look at it.
If you think about a Trophy Gold moment, okay, so moments in Trophy Gold are nestled within sets. Every set has their own list.
Right.
They're just descriptive bits, but they're not, I think in a traditional dungeon, those descriptive bits would be attached to a very specific place in the dungeon.
Right.
You go down 10 squares to the left and 10 to the right, and in this room right here is a thing, and here's a description of it.
Right.
But that's not the way Trophy Gold works. It's the description pulled away from a specific attachment. It's not attached to anything in particular.
Yep.
And so it's therefore kind of just a tool for the GM to use to sort of like give the flavor and give the feeling of a dungeon.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's one of the OSR things about Trophy Gold to me is that you can really glance at the adventure and then run it. Mm-hmm. It breaks things down that I see a lot of people in the OSR design space say, I wish this was just a series of bullet points.
Right.
And Trophy Gold says, okay, it's just a series of bullet
points. Yeah, exactly. It's so true. And it's so important in Trophy Gold and Trophy Dark because these games require a certain amount of improvising by the GM and by the players to some degree with Devil's Bargains and stuff.
Yeah.
Because there's a collaborative effort going on, because there's a little bit of like collaborative improvisation going on at the table. You need these things to be a little bit more free-floating. Mm-hmm. You need to be able to use them when you need them.
Yeah.
That might be a good segue into sort of the practical part of this discussion, which is just like, how do you use moments? I've got my list, but how do you use them?
I made a list, and they are, in fact, in bullet points. I think the one that I want to lead with is when I just don't know what else to say. When there's just a weird, uncomfortable silence. Someone has just done something, and folks are just kind of stewing for a moment. It's just a nice way to, especially when it's environmental. It's something about the wind, or some crows in the distance, or something that is meaningful to the setting and the overall set and the overall mood and theme, but isn't demanding attention. Just like, I'm not sure here it is. Here's the thing.
Right.
Reading about new GMs and kind of what they're scared of, I feel like that's a nice cushion to have. If you don't know what else to say, here are a couple things. Mm-hmm. Other times, I think I have a very similar one to you as a reaction to people searching or characters' actions. Mm-hmm. If they find something terrible in a hunt roll, one of these moments could be that. It could also be something that brings people back after a break.
I saw that on your notes, and I thought this was the most interesting one because I hadn't thought of this. What do you mean by that?
Everything is Zoom right now, right? So what we tend to do is we play for an hour and then I try to keep track of that. And then I say, hey, let's take a bio break and we'll come right back. We come back. And so it's a nice, if you've got a strong moment in your pocket, that's a nice way to kind of bring everybody right back into it.
It's like a ritual of play.
Just about, yeah.
That's really good. I like that a lot. I've never used moments that way, but I like that. I've probably accidentally done it that way because of the main way I use them is when transitioning between sets, and I've usually just taken a break.
Yeah.
But like, I've never thought about it as a way of recentering the group.
Right.
I don't know why I never thought of it, because honestly, one of the things that I love about many of the story games that I used to play all the time is they do have these like mechanized like rituals of play where the whole point of it is to signal to the players, now we're doing the thing.
Yeah.
Now we are here to play. We're here to do this. Now we're doing this. Yeah, that's a great use of a moment. I like that a lot.
Thank you.
Any other ways that you use them?
As someone who writes up a fair share of them, I think they're valuable just as a writer because you can kind of look at them in isolation and check them against the theme. Am I reinforcing the theme with my moments here?
Right.
If not, how can I make them stronger? And you can also kind of get the vibe of it. Like, are they wondrous? Are they horrific? Are they puzzling? Are they just confusing? Like, what is it that you're going for? And how do your moments reinforce that?
Right.
And I think that's a really important tool to look at for adventure writing. It isn't buried in the paragraph, right? It's there. It's a bunch of bullet points. So you can really take them in isolation and look at them and say, all right, what kind of adventure am I making here? Which is nice.
I think there's a note there for GMs too. When you're prepping, all trophy incursions are very easy to get to the table.
Right.
That's the whole point of them, is to be easily played. But something you can do is you read the incursion beforehand, you read the theme statement, and you're like, okay, now I know what the theme is. Awesome, cool. I'm thinking about theme. And then you read the moments, and the moments just help reinforce it.
Right.
Even if you aren't like actively drawing from the list of moments in play, I bet they're still affecting the way you're describing things, right? Like they're in there.
And it makes it easier to play with things. I think you can kind of circle your favorite one. If you see that a character is like closing in on ruin and it's pretty clear that they're going to be the monster and there are a bunch of crows that are just hollering at one player in a moment, you can riff off of that moment and be like, yeah, they don't holler at you. They leave shiny bits at your feet.
Yeah.
And act submissive
Right.
and get very quiet.
Yeah.
You can also use them as a starting point and use them to show that something is happening in the setting or something's happening to the players.
Yeah, that's fabulous. Yeah, I love that. That's a great way of thinking about them. You know, for me, I've already mentioned that I like to use them in the transition between sets. I think it's a great way of sort of memorializing that moment.
Yeah.
And in that case, it does have that sort of like ritual of play function. But for Trophy Dark, I'll like pick one per set basically and describe it as they move from ring to ring. Same thing with Trophy Gold though, like the new set in Trophy Gold, I'll pick one and kind of have that be the thing that I talk about before as they're kind of moving into the space.
Yeah. Well, for Dark, will you like put the number of the set that you want, or the ring that you want them to go with in your notes or whatever?
No, the way I do it is I pick the ring 2 transition because I'll have to do that one first.
Yeah.
And then I pick the rest on breaks.
Gotcha.
So like on a break, I'll be like, okay, I'm going to use this one for my ring 4 transition or whatever. So
cool.
I don't put a number. I just remember, but you could totally do that.
Yeah, yeah.
I do frequently use moments on the encounter something horrible or terrible option in a hunt roll because, again, I like to say this as much as I can. Encountering something terrible does not mean encountering a monster necessarily.
Yeah.
It could just be something terrible, right? It could be Woe Doom watching a bunch of wolves eat a guy. I also use them. This is probably the most bespoke use of them, I guess I'll say. In Trophy Dark, I will frequently use a moment when a character is having alone time.
Yeah.
So like they're on watch.
Yep.
Or they separate from the group or something.
Yeah.
Because they're a good way of anchoring that character in the world, even though that character's not able to talk to the other player characters.
Right.
It's a way of sort of anchoring them in the environment and keeping them anchored in the world. Especially if there's an opportunity, I'll also maybe use it as a little like prod for the character to do something. It's like, oh, you see this, what do you do? You know, kind of give them a chance to sort of look into it. You have to do a little bit of improvising there, but that's okay.
You've read a lot more of these than I have. Mm-hmm. So when you're looking for a good moment or a good series of moments, are you looking for things that players have to react to? Are you looking for things that just reinforce the theme? Or do you want like little or kind of hors d'oeuvres that, you know, just continuing the food metaphor that you don't necessarily have to react to, but you can if you want to? Like what makes for strong moments or what has made for weak moments?
Oh, that's good. A strong moment reinforces theme, first and foremost.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a strong moment feels like a line of poetry. It feels like a really punchy, highly concentrated bit of description, or a really, really, really good piece of prose.
Nice.
Because otherwise, what's the point of it? If it's going to be something just like really simple, that to me is a weak moment. If it's just like it's real simple. Like this is the moment is the thing that's going to make me look like a rock star GM. So I want it to be really good.
Yeah.
So they need to be well written. Now that doesn't mean they have to be like overly flourishy or like they have to use a bunch of $10 words. But I do think it means they need to be really cognizant of the theme. And I think that they should show the environment that the characters are in. You asked about like a thing that leads to more exploration or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily need that in a moment because I don't use them that way much myself. Occasionally, like I said, when a character's alone, I'll do that. But for the most part, because I use them mostly in transitions, it's very obviously a transitional thing. I don't intend for the players to go look at it. That said, sometimes they want to. And so you might have to kind of like, adjust on the fly to that because the moments don't otherwise have any other support in them. But if they're really, really well connected to the theme, you should be able to, and you yourself as a GM are kind of in the space of theme, in your headspace, you should be able to react pretty well.
They remind me of a thing I was talking about this weekend. I went hiking with Joniki this weekend on a campground that I used to like buffer LARP when I was an undergrad. And there's this thing that happens in big LARPs where there are these little moments that no one created. They just kind of happened. Here's an example. Like no one planned this, right? But my friend and I were brushing our teeth on Sunday morning after camping out and hitting things with sticks all weekend. And a crow landed between us and like cawed at us aggressively for a couple minutes and then flew away. And like we spit out our toothpaste and we just looked at each other and we were like, we are fucked. That was a fell omen for how the rest of this day is going to go. Clearly, the LARP organizers did not like send a crow to us.
I'm very impressed if they did.
It's just this thing that happens when you're out in the world. I don't know. It's nice that at the table you can kind of craft these and have a list of them to go with so that, I don't know, it just feels very real.
Yeah.
It makes things feel real in a real way.
Yeah, and I think that's a great note to end on because truly what they are, I know for a fact what Jesse wrote them to be, or his original intention was that these are just going to be literally what they say, moments. They are just little bits in the story that help as much as you can make it a convincing environment, a convincing tale, but are not otherwise mechanically important.
Yep.
They're just little bits. Awesome. That was great.
Cool.
Let's go to the next segment.
Woven on the Loom.
A few episodes back, we asked listeners to send us your artifacts lost to time and space, and we were going to read them over and pick a winner and send that winner a $10 drive-through gift card, and we're going to announce the winner in a moment, but we are also going to talk about, I want to talk about like a few of these I'd like to, before we talk about the winner.
Yeah.
So I think the first one I want to talk about, which was not the winner, but very, very good one, is The Crown of Glass Thorns. This is by Alexi Sargent, and I'm going to just read it. Iridescent and enchanting, this crown is woven from glass thorns that grow in the gardens of a parasitic world that was once attached to ours. When you wear the crown of glass thorns, you may use the ritual Forget. When you attempt this ritual, the GM and the other players should suggest significant memories you might lose if it goes wrong. If you succeed, you may remove a harmful memory of your choice, including the memory of another ritual. If you forget a starting ritual, remove the associated ruin. When you remove the crown of glass thorns, you forget having used it. Others may be able to convince you that you did, but the recollection of the experience itself is gone forever. I like this one a lot.
Yeah.
I think it fit the brief pretty well, for one thing, about artifacts lost to time and space. But I like what Alexi did here mechanically. I thought the mechanical implications are really good on this one, because basically what Alexi says is, this is just a regular old risk roll.
Yeah.
It's a risk roll, but here are some suggestions for how that risk roll should go. Like normally it's up to the players and GM to offer up their own devil's bargains and their own, sort of like failure conditions. But this magic item says no, you should offer this kind of thing. This is the kind of thing you should offer. You should offer lost memories. That's what you should offer. It's such an easy way of doing a magic item. It's an easy way of creating a little special rule that does not fundamentally alter the core rules very much.
Yeah.
It basically just makes the risk roll more specific, It's like a more specific result. So I really like that a lot. I thought that was great.
It's a good one. I mean, I was a fan as soon as the words parasitic world
Yes.
came out.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, yeah, we need to delve into that. What the hell's a parasitic world? That's great.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's great. So yeah, love that one. That one was super, super good. I want to do another one too before we talk about the winner.
Sure.
The Tome of Archmage Bulagok. I have it pulled up, so I'll read it.
Yep.
An iron-bound tome chained to a dark altar beneath the Archmage's ruined home. The book is surprisingly light for how large it is and how much metal is built into it. Even with the covers locked shut by a great iron nail, glittering lights and floating runes will still occasionally squeeze their way out from between the pages. The book contains instructions for every ritual known to mankind. In order to open the book, you must impale your hand on the iron spike that holds the two covers together. Opening the book reveals a page with a random ritual. You must keep your hand on the spike in order to keep the book open.
So gruesome.
I know, and it constantly drains the user's life force to empower the ritual. The book cannot be closed or pages turned before casting the ritual, and attempting to do so will drain all of the user's remaining energy and cast the massively empowered spell randomly. I'd probably rewrite this a little bit if I'm being honest, but I like the theme of it a lot. I like the descriptions of it. I like what it does. It's so gruesome. This is by Gauntlet Forums user Axroy Tovu.
Mm-hmm.
I think I know who that is, but I don't want to say it because I'm wrong. But Axroy Tovu is the username. What do you think of that one?
I love it. I'm a librarian, so I have a soft spot in my heart for any magical books, especially fell magical books that demand blood. It's great. I don't know. It's just fun and dark and terrible. I know how reticent the players in my game would be to stab their hand with something like that.
Right.
Like, I just feel like they would be,
Yeah.
it would really give them pause, which I love. It would give a condition, right? But it's not even that. It's just the description of it. It's just so horrific.
Absolutely. And then I think I would probably rewrite it to where the longer you mess with it, it leads to ruin as well.
Yeah.
Thematically, it's so strong. I think it would do what it's supposed to do at the table without all that.
And I think bonus points for the term Archmage and bonus points for naming the Archmage, because now we've got a new weird name out in the world.
Oh, yeah.
Was the Lich one of Bulagok's apprentices, and who the hell knows? It's cool. Like Parasitic Worlds, it demands more looking into, which is cool.
Absolutely. I love that. Okay, so the third one we're going to talk about is the winner, and this was your favorite of the submissions, correct?
Yeah, it was. This is by Anodos, and it's the Mask of a Perpendicular Universe, a simple gunmetal gray mask that simply seems off. If you place it on your face, you will shift slightly toward a perpendicular universe to the one you inhabit. This means that you'll be both invisible and unable to act directly on any object or person, including speaking to them. The catch is you cannot take the mask off willingly, but must convince someone else to do it for you. Also, the longer you wear the mask, the less likely it will become that anyone will remember you ever existed.
It's good. It's real good.
Yeah. Players always want to sneak by shit. Like, there's just going to be some instance where they're going to realize that the mask is going to be in their bag, and they're going to say, I'm not going to use it, I'm going to sell it, and then they're going to need to get by that one person in order to free their friend, and there it'll be.
Yep. Calling to them.
Totally.
Put the ring on, Frodo.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
It's totally that. I like that everything in this magic item is sort of contra to the things I liked about the Glass Thorn Crown one. Everything in this one, it's pure descriptive, right? It's pure narrative. There's no mechanical overhang at all on this.
Right.
But it's great. You could probably reasonably attach conditions to it. But I just like that to take it off, you have to convince someone to take it off of you. What a great scene. Or maybe even a whole series of scenes or an adventure, right? Like, that's great.
And you can't talk to anybody in this universe directly.
Yeah.
Are you writing words on mirrors? Are you
right.
Or are you finding someone from the perpendicular universe? Yeah, it's going to lead to fun, cool stuff, which is why I like that.
Yeah, me too. It's a great one. And that is our winner. So we will get in touch with Anodos about that drive-through gift card. And thanks to everyone who participated. We hope you will participate in future.
Yeah, they're all really good. Like,
they are really good.
I just had a lot of fun reading them, and I always do. So thanks to everybody who took the time.
Absolutely. Let's go to the next segment.
Desperate and doomed.
Okay, this is our ongoing short-form actual play featuring the adventures of the mannequin Wodum. And last we saw you, Wodum, you had just entered into the manor, the hunting lodge of the Marquis Nirral, and you were in this sort of grand entryway. And so I described a few things. First, there are a pair of grand wrapping staircases that sort of go up on either side and lead to a sort of central landing. On the left, there is an arched entrance to the north wing of the manor. On the right, there is an arched entrance to the south wing of the manor. And I also described directly above you, there is a chandelier with a fresh victim attached to it, bleeding out, guts hanging out. He's sort of given a desperate, gasping cry. I will tell you that he dies.
Okay.
You are not going to get to talk to him, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But you are there having just carved your initials into the banister in a fine passive-aggressive maneuver against the wolf that goaded you and taunted you last time. What do you do, Wodum?
I want to take a moment. I want to get out from under the blood spatter of this person in the chandelier, but I kind of want to look at them and see if did it look like they were an adventurer? Did it look like they lived here? Like, where were they coming from, do you think?
Do a hunt roll. Let's find out.
I think that's just 1. 5.
Nice. You get a token.
Yep.
Go ahead and note that. And you encounter something terrible. The person hanging from the chandelier, they expire, and their mouth is kind of hanging open. And you'll notice that they have large lupine fangs.
Oh, wow.
You can even notice evidence of a sort of like aborted transformation.
Huh.
Thick patches of fur on the arm, slightly stretched out mouth and ears. This person was a beast bitten of some sort.
Yeah.
Strong.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, keeping that in mind, I think I'll head north.
Okay, so when you step through the arched entrance that goes into the north wing of the manor, that is a new set. This set is called the North Wing, and your set goal is find an exquisite treasure. Now, this wing of the manor is essentially a maze of small rooms. Each of these small rooms have multiple doors going into them. 2 doors, 3 doors, even 4 doors going in at different spots. Most of them appear to be small parlors with just little tables and chairs. Some have a fireplace and the attendant hardware. The walls are all a smooth plaster painted with bold colors. There's all sorts of ornate gilt bronze plaster moldings sort of lining the ceilings and doorways. Every room seems to have an elk horn and bronze candelabra that is lit.
Oh, interesting.
Those candelabras are either on the floor, like standing, or on a table, or even suspended from the ceiling. And no wax strips, interestingly enough. Like, these are all just lit.
Huh.
And as you're sort of going in and kind of ducking your head in here and there, you'll start to hear the howling of wolves echoing from deeper inside the manor. So I guess you have a few different options here.
Mm-hmm.
You can investigate some of these smaller parlors. There's one particularly large, like, salon area. There's also a single door at the end of a hallway that opens up into a long art gallery, like a long gallery. And then, interestingly, you'll also see in the sort of central connecting hallway, towards the very back left corner, there's a set of stairs winding up. Those are sort of your options.
Yeah.
Check out these parlors, check out the salon, the art gallery, and then there's these little back stairs tucked away. What do you do?
Yeah, I walk through the parlor a bit. I think, hips always kind of moving forward and swiveling at the torso. I've got the chain in 2 of my hands so that if I need to kind of swing it, I can. The weird candelabras kind of interest me. I just kind of want to like squat near one and look at it carefully for a second. Just trying to figure out, like, is it electricity? Is it magic fire? Like what? I don't know. I think I kind of even maybe like poke at one or see if I can like thumb and finger it out.
Yeah.
I don't know why that's the detail that is interesting, but that is the detail that I'm kind of curious about.
No, that's a great. Do a hunt roll. That's a great question.
5 again.
Nice. Go ahead and take a token. You're watching one of the candelabras, maybe some of the candles that are lit on maybe one of the little table ones inside a small parlor.
Mm-hmm.
And you watch it long enough to see the wax begin to dribble. And because you are so patient, you probably end up watching it for much longer than you even realize. But you watch it long enough for the dribble of wax to run in the opposite direction, right back up to where it was pooling.
Oh, wow.
Time passes, the wax dribbles, but then it resets.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm going to write that off as time magic and just kind of walk away. I'm going to see if I can draw a wolf here. I've got mimicry. I've heard the wolves howl now. I'm going to try to find a parlor with a doorway that I can kind of set an ambush for and like just give a howl.
Yeah.
And see if I can wait for one to come in.
I love that. That's a risk roll.
Cool.
Now, this is the first risk roll we've done for this series.
Yeah.
Normally, we would have lots of players at the table to do devil's bargains and things. But since we don't have that, I have come up with a custom procedure for our risk roll for just a 1v1. And
awesome.
Listeners, feel free to steal this if you like it. But here's how it's going to go. I'll say what I think could go wrong. You can agree to continue after you hear what I say or not. Then we'll gather dice like normal. For the devil's bargain, the way that's going to work is I will make an offer, as would normally be the case, but you get to alter the offer. You can make essentially a counter offer, changing a detail of my offer.
Interesting.
And then
cool.
And then I can basically just agree to it, or maybe see if you will accept another adjustment or whatever. But essentially, that's how we'll kind of do it. It'll be like a literal negotiation.
Sounds good.
And then we'll roll as normal. Definitely a risk roll. Just state for us again what you're trying to accomplish here.
I'm trying to call a wolf in, very possibly to ambush it. But maybe I don't know what Woda's going to do when they come. We'll see. We'll see how many we get. Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
What could go wrong is, I think the worst thing that could happen here is a whole pack shows up, not just one.
Yeah, totally.
If you're cool with that, go ahead and take a light die for using mimicry.
Yep.
And my devil's bargain, my opening move here for the devil's bargain is, no matter what, at least one entity that shows up is not in the form of a wolf.
Cool.
Now, if you want, great. You can make an alteration if you wish, or you can just accept that.
No, that's great. That's really interesting.
All right, so go ahead and roll 2 light dice.
I will take that. And is this a dark die or is this not a dark die?
I don't think you're necessarily risking mind and body yet. You're definitely maybe on the next whatever flows from this possibly, but yeah.
Sounds good. Cool. I got a 6.
Nice. I'm not going to ask you to do the wolf call here on the recording, but
thank you. I appreciate that.
But you can go ahead and give me the moment leading up to whoever shows up if you want. What does it look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think I stand behind the door with my chain kind of like over my shoulder, like so I can lash out with it. Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to ambush anybody, but I'm ready to.
Nice. You are standing in the small parlor and you've got your chain ready. You've made your wolf call. You actually hear, before you can see, in the hallway just outside your vision of the doorway, you can hear the padding of a 4-legged creature padding along the hall. But then there's a pause before they get to the doorway. And then stepping around the corner from the hall into the frame of the door is a woman wearing a beautiful dark purple velvet gown with jewels at her throat, carrying a black hand fan, and she gives you a sideways glance and gives a very familiar looking grin.
Oh no.
And she says, "Oh, you're not what I expected to see at all."
We are both surprised.
Indeed. I think we'll leave it there.
Yeah, that's great.
Listeners, that's our show. The Sixth Ring is part of the Trophy Podcast. The Trophy Podcast is a production of The Gauntlet. You can find The Gauntlet on Twitter at GauntletRPG. We have a website. It's gauntlet-rpg.com. We are on Patreon. If you'd like to support this show and all the other things we do, it's patreon.com/gauntlet. Judd, thank you so much. Do you have anything you want to plug this week?
Daydreaming Without Dragons continues, so come on over and listen if you liked what's going on here. You might like what's going on there. I talk about my Trophy of Gold game a bit, so come on over.
Awesome. And thanks so much to our fabulous editor, Rich Rogers.
Thank you, Rich. And thank you, Jason. That was a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah, you bet. Yeah, I always have a good time when we talk. So, and listeners, thanks for joining us. Take care. Hi, listeners. Jason from Gauntlet Publishing here. I want to tell you about a couple of new things we have for you this month. The first is Nephews in Peril, a major expansion for Brindlewood Bay, the game of cozy murder mysteries and supernatural horror. Nephews in Peril is a collection of 6 new mysteries for the game, each by a different fabulous author, and some revised rules and gameplay advice. It can be found in the $6 plus Gauntlet Patreon feed until October 15th, and then Drive-Thru RPG after that. The next thing I want to tell you about is Codex Home, the first issue in Volume 5 of the magazine. Codex Home features new material for Trophy Gold and Brindlewood Bay, plus the all-new game Back Again from the Broken Land, which is about fantasy heroes recounting stories as they return home from a calamitous war against a Dark Lord, all while evading the remnants of that Dark Lord's army. It's a fantastic Powered by the Apocalypse game, and we're delighted to share it with you later in October. Remember, your contributions to the Gauntlet Patreon help support everything we do in the community, including this very podcast. As always, thanks so much for your support.